Welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and today, excited to continue our playthrough of RoboMon. We're going to pick it up exactly where we left it off, where we had just come out of Gramps' garage, and we are now inside of Copper Ridge with a number of options to explore, so let's begin. There are all kinds of people, places, and things to interact with within Copper Ridge. I'm going to start with this building up here. It looks like this one has a door latch. It says 21 on it, and the page we're on is 01, so 2101, that's what we're going for in the adventure book. Now this entry is more of a learning experience. It says you find a conveniently unlocked door. So why is it okay to walk into someone's home and take an item of your choosing? Are there no legal repercussions for this? It's probably better not to ask these questions overall, but just pretend there's very generous people here for this example. Now, when you find doors, chests, and search icons along your journey, you'll find doors, for instance, as you can see the icon here, but you'll find purple ones. And when you find a purple door handle icon, whenever you see it, you refer to the bottom of the page where there's a chart, and you roll on the chart to see what you find inside the house. Now you'll see that I've gone ahead and penciled in the black dot to say that we've interacted with that. Now this one doesn't provide us with anything, but it's letting us know that we could find something in the future. Let's head on down here. Maybe one of these locations could be interesting. Let's check out 13. Let's interact with the individual behind this blue counter here at the Bolt Mart. It says, you see your friend Dustin napping at the table in front of the Bolt Mart his dad owns. You tap him on the shoulder and he startles him so much, he almost falls off the box he's sitting on. I was about to win the RFL championship, he says. I was one match away from bringing home the belt. He looks off in the distance and then he snaps back to reality. Oh, I bet you're here because my dad just got back from the city and you're wondering if he brought back anything cool. Dustin straightens up, looks at his fingernails. Well, there's not much to report here except for this really cool new issue of Kid Dynamo that just came out. And your eyes get wide as Dustin slams the comic on the table. You reach out to grab it, but he kind of pulls it away from you. No can do, Ranger. Now that you're a bona fide certificate chasing wannabe, I can no longer give these things out for free. So if you want to see if Kid Dynamo can defeat Dr. Tartan and restore order to the universe, it's going to cost you. So as you move through Copper Ridge and interact with each of the different nodes, you're going to realize it's explaining a number of different game elements that are going to pop up in the future and really open up for you. So in this case, once I'm done reading the section I just did, it says many interactions will give you a choice to make on what you say or how you respond. And these choices will lead to different outcomes, skill checks, puzzles, side quests, depending on your response. So there's a lot there that's nested inside. And each choice will give you an adventure book entry to turn to in order to see what happens next. You can see here we have a choice between A, B, and C we have to make. Out of the three options, I think I'm going to try to distract Dustin for a moment and try and take the comic without him noticing. So let's go ahead and make our skill check here. It's an agility check based on the adventure book. A 9 or less result is this section and a 10 plus down here. We're going to be rolling 2d6s and we'll be taking a look at our skills here. For me, agility is a -1, so we factor that in. We also can factor in any bonuses potentially from RoboMon. That could potentially boost up our agility. I don't currently have any on the 2 that I have. And remember, your team of RoboMon consists of 6, with 2 of them being active for combat. You can look throughout all 6 of the RoboMon in play that you have as part of your team to see if any of them boost your stat during a skill check. So let's go ahead and roll. Now I don't have anything off those RoboMon for now, just so you guys are aware. We got, oh, that is a really low roll. So 1 and 1, -1, that is a 1. That is literally pretty terrible. Not great on the agility roll there. So we are in the 9 or less category. It says you bump the table, knocking a few engine parts onto the floor. Dustin reaches down to pick them up. You try to grab the comic, however, you're not quite fast enough, and Dustin slams his hand on the comic. Not so fast. That was slick, but if you want to read the latest Kid Dynamo, you'll have to bring me a comic I haven't read yet, and we'll do a little trade. Now, whenever you receive a quest from someone, you'll draw a card from the adventure deck to remind you what that task is and who gave it to you. So this point is telling us to draw card 009 because Dustin wants us to try to go ahead and try to find a comic. Now, taking a look at the adventure card itself, it does actually relate to an individual named Calvin on the card. That is a typo, which will be corrected in the final version, but you can see this is a reminder of that quest to find a comic book for Dustin in Copper Ridge. Now that we have a quest to fulfill, I decided to go ahead, as I'm filling in the black ones here, and to fill it in halfway to let me know that I'm partway into a quest there. I have the adventure card to remind myself what I need to do, and then once I do it, I can come back and fill in that bubble as I'm doing all of the black bubbles throughout this play. Let's go ahead and continue on down here. We have number 25, so we'll go to 2501. A little boy named Ricky and his robot dog appear to be having a great time. Now, it's mentioning here inside the adventure book, it's talking about puzzles for the very first time. This is something you guys are going to want to know about because puzzles are a very unique and interesting aspect of this game. So interacting with Ricky has opened up learning around puzzles, which there's a whole section here that you can pause the screen to read. I'll let you read the middle 2 paragraphs. The top one here says, the world of RoboMon is full of puzzles, secrets, and riddles. Some of them are visual and accompanied by an image, others are text-based, but every puzzle's answer will be a 4-digit number that you'll turn to in the adventure book. Now, most puzzles are like side quests and do not affect the game's overall story or your progression. However, some puzzles are important to the game's plot, so they have the marked story. And always give a hint system so that you don't get stuck. Now, see if you can figure out Ricky's puzzle below. It's a 1-star difficulty, so it's not very tough. It says here, Ricky is singing, "This is my robo-dog, Shelly. She's got a prize in her belly. Just look at her collar and give me a holler if you know what number to tell me." Now, this puzzle is considered easy, but if you take a look at the collar here, you'll see 4 different shapes, and we're trying to find a 4-digit number. So something to look at here with this one is how many sides are on each side of those jewels. So you can see the first one is 4, the next one is 6, then 3, and then 4. If we use those numbers in the adventure book, we might find something. Now, this is one of the easier puzzles, but we were successful. It says, "Oh wow," Ricky says with a surprise, "you actually figured it out. People around town say you're not the sharpest cup in the cup drawer, but maybe they're wrong." He chuckles a bit before tossing you something. "Here you go." And he gives us 2 batteries. So I'm taking 2 of the battery tokens, and we'll add them to the pile we already have. Now, as we continue exploring around Copper Ridge, it's worth mentioning you don't have to go in any particular order. I'm just kind of going around in a loop formation. Again, I want to interact with everything here because it's all pushing me towards more learning around how the game operates. And really, once you consume all of Copper Ridge and you get out there in the wild, you're going to be able to do whatever you want, whenever you want. In this case, let's head to this one right here. So it's going to be 1101. Now, this is really cool. You can see that the different interactions within the adventure book are going to vary from comic book style to kind of like a news broadcast on a screen here. So you can pause the screen in order to read this, and I'm going to show you the rest of this as well. Now, as you read through it, you're going to notice at times you're going to be told to do certain things. In this case, we're drawing card 15 from the adventure deck. So we just gained a pocket boat voucher, which I'll put in my inventory, and there's actually more to read as well. There were 3 segments to consume there. We had the Channel 1 News, we had the Around Alloy, and then we had the Ready to Rumble here. Let's keep traversing around Copper Ridge. I kind of want to talk to this individual over here, so that's going to be 1601. Now, you're going to run into people who need something or want you to try and accomplish a task throughout the game and playing through this adventure. You see Veronica here on the bench. That's Ricky's mom, and she's happily watching Ricky run around in circles with his robo-dog. He's come a long way, hasn't he? She nods at Ricky. If your grandfather hadn't pulled some strings to get him that surgery a year ago, I don't know what we would have done. She sighs. Of course, we're not out of the woods yet. He'll need a large microchip soon to keep up with how fast he's growing. I never thought I would see him walking, and now just look at him. She smiles, running around like nothing ever happened. She shifts around uneasily. I can't bear the thought of having him go back to the way things were. Now, it states here, whenever you receive a quest from someone, you'll draw a card from the adventure deck to remind you what the task is and who gave it to you. So we've seen this before. In this case, we're going to draw card 10 from the adventure deck and see what we get. So now we have an official quest from Ricky's mom to try and find a microchip for Ricky. Next, we're going to interact with this building right here, which has a door icon. You'll see a door chart down below, and this tells us which die to roll. It's a D4, so we're going to roll it to see what we find inside the house. We're going to go looting and see what we can find in there. We got ourselves a rolled off screen. This is a 3. That'll be a wire. Just to keep track of what I just obtained, I went to the back side of the character sheet. There's a wire section there to the right of it. I placed a 1. So with that wire in our inventory, I also wanted to update the map book based on the last couple of points of interest I interacted with. So first off here, we've gone ahead with Ricky and we solved the puzzle. So I've gone ahead and filled that in. We interacted with this screen here and went through everything. We did get ourselves a voucher, which I've got. So I've gone ahead and closed that one off. And then this one here is a door. We just went inside and found the wire, so we've filled that one in. This one we put halfway because we got the microchip quest from Ricky's mom, so we know it's something we have to do. So really we have this quest here open to us to still solve and resolve, and this one right here so far. Now, something I need to do retroactively is when we first knocked on this door up here, we learned how doors worked, but I didn't actually roll a die to gain anything at that point in time, and I should have before I went ahead and filled in the circle. So this is kind of like a doing things after I should have done them originally. So we're gonna go ahead and roll a D4 right now and see what I got for that original one up here. It's a 1, that's gonna be an extra battery. The last thing on the west side of Copper Ridge is this one right here, 15. Let's go check it out in the adventure book. This location is considered a hover bus stop, which you can actually see on the sign there. And when the founders put the world back together, they made sure to set up transportation system of hover buses to make it easy to get places. And you can benefit from that system. Whenever you move to the map book page with one of those icons where we interacted with it there, the little map icon, and a hover bus stop on it, write down the name of the location and the page number in the hover bus section of your character sheet. Now, anytime you're on a map book page with a hover bus stop, you can jump to any other page you visited with a hover bus stop. So on the back side of the character sheet, you'll see a hover bus section. This is what it was referring to because we interacted with it. We write our location down, which is Copper Ridge, and the page number that we have here. Again, we now can traverse back to Copper Ridge in the future if we find another hover bus station somewhere else. All right, it's time to interact with the east side of Copper Ridge here. Let's take a look up here and do some searching. Now, as you can see at the very bottom of the map book, there is a table. Let's reference that table. It's going to have us roll a d4 and see what we find. So 1 to 2 will give us a battery, or we could get metal or potentially a coolant. Let's see how it goes. We got ourselves a battery. We might as well complete all of the searchable locations, and I've also filled in that node to complete it. Let's go ahead and roll for that one over there with 24 on it. Actually, seeing as it has a number, we might as well interact with it and see what it states prior to rolling. It says we find a barrel with something inside. This entry inside the adventure book is really telling you what these magnifying glasses are all about. Very similar to the door one that we explored before. So nothing different there. We're still going to be referencing the chart at the bottom and rolling on it. We know 1 to 2 is a battery, 3 is metal, and a 4 is coolant. Let's go ahead and see if we get something beyond a battery this time. We got ourselves a 3. It might have rolled off camera. Hopefully you saw that. It is a metal. So we now have 1 wire and 1 metal. We have a whole bunch of batteries, and we still have the silver we had from prior. Now, before we interact with a couple of the interesting nodes around here, we have 19, 26, and 33. Let's check out the door handle. So we'll do one at a time. Let's go ahead and do this one. So we're rolling on this chart right here. Let's see how we do. Got ourselves a 3. That's going to be another wire, and then we'll interact with this door here and try to find something. Got ourselves a battery. All right, I'm really curious about this, what looks like a compass symbol down here. So 3302 is where we're going in the adventure book. When you see an icon like this, it means there's something to explore there. These locations usually have some type of encounter or offer opportunities to experience interesting adventures and possibly gain some cool stuff. So it says here you wander through the woods for a while and eventually arrive at the edge of a ravine that's too far to jump across. On the other side, you spot a thick branch that looks like it would support your weight if you just had a way to reach it. Sometimes you're going to need it to complete a task or find an item to be able to proceed. Now it says here to continue, you'll need a grappling hook. If you have a grappling hook, you can continue. Otherwise, that is it. So we're going to need to find that to traverse this area. So we'll leave that node completely uncolored as it didn't give me any kind of quest to follow, but something we can come back to in the future. It's worth mentioning if you have notes going on to the side as you venture further into the game, you can keep that in a notebook to the side written down, so that way eventually when you get the grappling hook, you'll remember where it is you need to head in order to use it. So that's something to keep in mind. Now we got 2 more things I want to interact with here, so 19 and 26. Let's check out this individual right here. This is another individual who likely needs something or wants me to accomplish something. You say hi to Miss Sands, who greets you with a warm smile. She pokes you in the belly and asks you if Gramp has been feeding you enough. Then she says, the cleaning robot at my house is on its last leg and is about due to have its power core replaced. If you bring me one, I'll give you something special. So we get to draw card 003 from the adventure deck, and we definitely want to do this because it sounds like we're going to get something pretty cool. So very quickly, we're getting a whole bunch of quests to go on. I shaded that prior node in halfway for 19. Now let's interact with 26. Mr. Chalmers motions for you to join him, and he tells you how excited he is to see you starting your ranger certification. He tells you good luck and hands you a small bag. At this point, we gain 3 small reprogrammers. With the small reprogrammers in hand, 3 of them in my inventory here, we have a question coming from Mr. Chalmers. He says, do you know how to use these things? And we can say yes or no here in the adventure book and go 2 different ways. I'm going to say no here. So, well, let me give you a rundown, Mr. Chalmers says. When you run into a RoboMon out in the wild and you want it to join your team, you'll need to toss one of these reprogrammers onto it. They're magnetic, which makes it a bit easier, and the closer you get to one of the RoboMon's main circuit board, the more likely the reprogrammer will work. There's a large section inside the rulebook all about reprogrammers. So during a battle with a wild RoboMon, you can discard a reprogrammer, lowering the number on your character sheet. So if I had 3, drop it down to 2, to attempt to capture the RoboMon and add it to your team. You do this, you'll forfeit one of your RoboMon's turns to toss the reprogrammer instead. You find the die that matches the reprogrammer you discarded. So if we're using a small one, we're going to be using a D4. If you're using a medium reprogrammer, it's going to be a D6. If you're using a large reprogrammer, it's a D8. So you're going to be jumping up on those dice. And you're going to toss the die into the game's box lid. And if the face-up number on the die is equal to or greater than the RoboMon's current hit points, the RoboMon has been successfully reprogrammed. You get to immediately place the RoboMon's Versus card back in the Versus deck and draw the RoboMon's card from the RoboMon deck based on its 3-digit number. For example, if you successfully reprogram RoboMon 025, you'll draw 025 from the RoboMon deck. Please note it states that some RoboMon have multiple cards in the RoboMon deck with the same number. When you encounter this, randomly select 1 to add to your team and place the rest back. So when you toss the die, the closer you get to the center of the target, the more likely the reprogrammer will work. So how it works is you have a target there in the green area. If you landed on that, you get a +3 result to the die roll. That is definitely what you were trying to land. Now, the next best thing is if you land on the yellow line or within the yellow space surrounding that green area, that's a +1. If you land on the red line or the space inside the red area, then you get just a flat 0. So nothing changes on your die roll. If you're outside of the red line though, it's a complete miss and your reprogramming did not work. So you gotta be on the red line or inside of it in order to even attempt at trying to reprogram this successfully. So it now tells us to go ahead and just take a couple rolls for fun here. We'll see how we do. So we're really trying to be on this yellow line or inside of it for the best result, to get any kind of real modification of the die that's going to be useful for us. So we roll that in, you'll see that trickled right outside would be a complete miss. So this is not going to be as easy. Now I am probably a good 2 steps back. So I am firing this thing in from a distance for sure. Oh, that's a little bit better. And I was still keeping it two back, so that's pretty good. Now, if you're sitting on the line like this, the rule states that if it lands on a line or it's in 2 zones, you can choose the one that gives you the greater benefit. So that's kind of nice. So in this case, I could choose to take the 3 if that is the best thing to do. There has been a small rule change to the reprogrammer. As it mentions inside of the prototype, it's currently worded that when you use a reprogrammer, you would actually lower the number of reprogrammers off your inventory sheet. But how it actually works is you would only lower that number if you're successful at actually reprogramming one of the RoboMon. If you're not successful, the reprogrammer is essentially thrown, it's dropped on the ground, and you pick it up and try again. So you have that opportunity to continue trying. Mr. Chalmers also lets us know that there are multiple types of reprogrammers out there in the wild. So you've got ones that are small, medium, and large, and the die sizes change as I mentioned earlier. Also, it's worth noting that Rangers are not allowed to have more than one of the same type of RoboMon. So if you reprogram one you already have, you'll have to let one go. The reason for this is because it's something to do with the fact they don't want too many RoboMon being removed from the same habitat. Mr. Chalmers gives you a big hug. I'm so glad to see you growing up. Now get out there and make Copper Ridge proud. The last thing worth mentioning around Mr. Chalmers is you have a maximum team size of 6 RoboMon. Whenever your team is full and you reprogram a new RoboMon, you may either place it in your save box or you can move a RoboMon on your team to the save box. Now your team exists underneath of these books. So basically right now I have Willowhair and I have Sparky. They're 2 of the 6 slots filled. And then when you go into combat, you're choosing 2 of those 6 to be your active RoboMon in that combat. But as I just mentioned, if you happen to gain any other RoboMon, you're going to have to put some of them in your save box, as you can't have all of them in your team in front of you. And that's going to do it. I don't think there's a single other thing that I can do here. I'm going to be able to come back here with a grappling hook in the future. We have a quest here, and quest here to run away and try and chase. And I have them all just down below where my RoboMon are sitting to remind me of what I'm going after. So all these cards are things I'm going to want to keep close by. But at this point, I think it's time to leave Copper Ridge. And you can see a page number up here. Now there's also this 17 17 that I kind of jumped past the first time. I think we should check that out before we leave. You see a red sign in the distance that says, "Now leaving Copper Ridge," and then you hear a voice. "Well, here comes the newbie. Now, hold it." You weren't thinking of leaving without saying goodbye to your old friend Tabitha, were you? Finally got your first RoboMon, huh? Well, if you think you're getting certified before I do, think again. If you want to get past me, you're going to have to prove yourself in a battle. Whenever you see one of those red octagons next to a page number, it means you must turn the adventure book entry before moving on to the different map page. So in this case, Tabitha, the girl who has been putting your gum in your hair since first grade, was the oldest kid in class, so she's always been a step ahead on everything. She started Ranger certification months ago, and here she is again wearing the same condescending smirk you've seen for years. Well, if she wants a fight, she's gonna get one. So at this point, we turn to 1702, and a battle begins. So here's what the grid looks like for this competitive battle against Tabitha, and it's telling us to go ahead and turn it vertical as I've done right here. The individual who's challenged you will usually have something to say to you, which you'll find in the bottom left-hand corner. Next to that, you're going to see 6 slots, and they're going to tell you which cards coming from the Versus deck are going up against you. Here we have 008 and 009. We're finding those cards and placing them up at the very top of this grid. You'll notice in the previous shot, beside the Versus card, there was also a number, so it lets you know which Versus card goes in which numbered slot, 1 and 2. And then here you have a QR code as well for some music to go along with the combat. To the right of each name for each of the RoboMon you're going up against, you're going to see a number, in this case 050, and the other one to the right just off camera is 043. You'll take those 2 numbers and you're going to head inside the tile deck of square punch-out tiles. You're going to match those numbers up with these square punch-out tiles, punch those 2 tiles out, and they're going to go onto the grid. Both of the square tokens that have been punched out are now placed on the white X's that are right on the grid, right near their cards. Now you're going to take a look at your team of RoboMon. In my case, I only have 2, and you're going to select 2 to be your active RoboMon. In this case, has to be Willowhair and Sparky. You're going to go ahead and find the circle double layer boards, and you're going to look at the numbers. You'll see the numbers in the bottom left of each of the artwork there, so 000 and 007. You're going to find the circular ones with the number on the back, similar to what you did with the square ones for the other enemy RoboMon, and find the associated tokens. These are going to go on the grid. Here's how my team of RoboMon are all set up. Both of the enemy RoboMon have an armor token as denoted in their stats on the left-hand side of each of their cards, so we placed a token for each of them nearby. Next up, we're looking at the speed rating for all the RoboMon. You'll remember this icon right here, the green one. So 70 here for Willowhair puts it at a 2 initiative, because Sabershock is an 86, which is the fastest of all 4 of them. And then it's going to go over here to this Bat RoboMon at 48, and then over to Sparky at the very, very end with 30. At this point, the battle is ready to begin, so we're going to take our 9 action dice and roll to determine the pool of dice that we have for our team. Let's go ahead and do that. All right, and from now on, I won't be rolling on top of the grid, that's for sure. But here is what we have. All right, we're all ready for the battle. I've gone ahead and combined all my dice up here. Worth mentioning, we're in a competitive battle, so hourglass symbols do not matter. We don't have to put any of those tokens up top at all. Keep track of that. That's only for wild battles. Competitive, we only care about the movement symbol. Now, these dice can be used across both of my RoboMon, but we're starting off with Sabershock. Now, RoboMon only move orthogonal when they do move, but Sabershock has the nimble attribute or ability, which allows it to move diagonal, so that's something to keep in mind. So we're going into this needing to roll a die to find out the focus and the ability that Sabershock is going to be throwing at us. We got ourselves a 1, so that's going to have us looking for the highest moving RoboMon, and that is an enemy, of course. So Willowhair, in this case, will be that target down here. So it's going to go ahead, Sabershock's going to move diagonal 1, and it's going to head down this direction using all of its movement allotment it has to get as close as possible to try and make a scratch attack, because this die will tell us not only the focus in terms of the row, but also the ability that Sabershock will be doing. Now here's the really good news. Sabershock is too far away in order to make an attack. You'll see this on the card. Beside the attack, if it does have a range symbol with the crosshairs, it has 2 little pips, and that tells us that it's 2 spaces away, is as far away as Sabershock can use that scratch ability. Unfortunately, I'm 3 spaces away, and you can count range diagonally and orthogonally, and it's still, I am 3 spaces away. So this attack is not going to happen, so Sabershock's turn is done, and we get to go ahead with Willowhair next. So Willowhair is going to start things off, and I want to move because I want to get up close to another individual as I don't have any attacks with range. So we're going to go ahead and move 1, 2, 3. I have to go orthogonal because Willowhair does not have the ability to move diagonal, so we get ourselves adjacent. Now I'm going to make myself an attack, and it's also worth mentioning you can attack orthogonal or diagonal. So even if you're a RoboMon that can't move diagonal, you can attack on the diagonal. I could stop here, for instance, to make an attack. That's okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and make an attack. I'm going to do a basic one, so I need to pay some kind of die, or I could use this token, but I'm going to hold on to this for now. We're going to use this one to do a basic attack. It'll cost 2 power. Doesn't matter how much we boost this thing up to go to the higher levels of damage, it still only costs 2 power, so we'll get rid of this right away so we don't forget. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to take these 2 wild symbols, which are super handy, and we're going to bump those things up, and that's going to allow us to spend 2, so we'll drop this 3 down to a 1. So we're burning power in order to convert these to reds, and now we got all the way up to 5 damage. We're going to be using a black modifier, and we know it's a black modifier being used because there is no type involved in terms of the attack. If I happen to have used a Vine Whip, it shows a type of damage. It's grass damage, and that's when we would check this advantage and disadvantage chart, and that would determine if it's one of these 2 dice. If it does not have a type associated with the attack, it's always the black die to modify it. So we're going to go into this knowing we're doing 5 damage. We do know that Saber Shock has this crazy armor of 2, but I'm going to hope that the modifier die is going to be on my side. But it's a black one, so it's kind of even. Let's see how this goes. All right, 0. So in the end, it didn't hurt me, so I guess that's good. But we got 5 damage, minus the 2 destroys the armor on Saber Shock, and 3 gets through, taking it down from 9 to 6. At this point, I kind of want to get Willowhair out of there, and we have tons of movement, so we might as well kind of back away from Saber Shock. So every time we use one of these movement icons, we get the full allotment of our movement, which is 4. So if I go ahead and spend 1 here, that's going to allow me to move Willowhair 4. So we'll just go like this and kind of back away into the corner. I think what I'm going to do now is maybe even go even farther back. I'm trying to get as far away from it as possible, although Saber Shock has some pretty cool abilities that allow it to jump over things that don't have red bordered terrain around it. But for now, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I think I'll do one more movement and we'll just kind of back up into the corner here. And I think that's where we're going to stop, and I'll leave those last 2 movement maybe for Sparky. Well, we're not out of the woods yet because now we have another RoboMon coming our way. This one can move decently quick too. We're going to go ahead and roll the die. We got ourselves a 1, so it's going to go after the fastest moving RoboMon, which will be Willowhair, and it's going to be moving 5. Now you'll see on the RoboMon that I just moved, it does have a purple wing on it. That means it's a flying RoboMon, and those ones can pass onto or over blue terrain with no additional movement costs, and the RoboMon that can swim can pass through or out of blue terrain with no additional movement costs. Now also having the flying trait allows you to pass onto or over yellow terrain like it's normal terrain. So it really starts to disregard some of the more basic rules around terrain, and those basic rules apply to blue, yellow, and red. Blue terrain is water sources. They have blue outlines. You have to spend an extra movement for each time you move through or out of them because it's a little bit of a slog to get through. Yellow terrain is difficult terrain, and you may not move onto it or through these spaces. However, you can use range abilities over them. Red terrain has barriers or red lines around it, of course, and RoboMon cannot move onto it, over it, or through these spaces and may not use range abilities over them. There's also terrain without grid lines. You can see that right here. And basically with those, it's pretty straightforward. You cannot move through it or over it in any way, shape, or form, or use any abilities over that type of terrain. Now, if we take a look at the ability for the die that we rolled, and we know the focus was around the fastest moving RoboMon, but in terms of what it's going to do for attacking, it's going to bite. And unfortunately, bite doesn't have any range at all. There's no way this thing can pull off an attack, so the turn is done there, and now we move to Sparky. Now, Sparky would really like to get in on the action, so I'm going to probably go ahead and use some movement to get it really close to that flying RoboMon. Now, I think my focus here is not really going to be around moving, even though I do have some movement dice to use. It's going to be more so around trying to use a special ability to help out Willowhair. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and flip over this token to this side and use the attack side. I'm going to use the special ability side, and I can choose down here at a range of 3 or a range of 2 to either target a RoboMon and give that RoboMon some extra power. So I could boost up the power of Willowhair, and I could absolutely do that. Or I could target RoboMon like Willowhair for 2. Remember, you can do it on a diagonal. And receive a boost to the hit points. I don't have any issues with hit points right now, but power sounds awesome. So let's go ahead and give Willowhair 3 back. So the boost I just did gave 3 over here to Willowhair, so now up to a total of 9. And then on top of it, we also need to spend 2 power because we actually did a boost with Sparky, so 2 comes off. And that's gonna do it. I don't have anything else I'd like to do here, so that's gonna wrap up the round. We refresh things, get a new die pool, and this token will come back right side up. All right, we're going into a brand new round. Let's see what happens with our dice this time. Maybe we'll get some different results going. We had lots of movement last time. There we go. That's a very, very different outcome. Going into a new round, let's see what Saber Shock is doing to us. We got ourselves a 4. That is going to be aggressive. So it's going after the lowest hit point. So in this case, again, both are the exact same. So it's going to go to the closest RoboMon in this case, which is going to be Sparky. Now there's something that's worth mentioning before I go any further here, and that is any attack that has a type associated to it from an enemy RoboMon is not going to have any advantage or disadvantage, red or green dice, against Sparky, because Sparky, as you can see in the top left-hand corner, or top right-hand corner, I should say, doesn't have any type associated to it. So there's nothing to compare to. Now, I need to mention this. The attack that's happening right now does not have any type associated to it whatsoever. This one is strictly just a regular attack. So he's trying to get as close to the RoboMon as possible. So he's going to move his allotment of 6 to get there, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, because it can move diagonal right against Sparky. And then a black dice rolled on top of the 3 damage that's coming at. Hopefully it's not good. Okay, that's not so bad. It could have been a plus or minus. I would have hoped for minus there, but it's just going to end up being 3. Now, what do we do defensively for Sparky? I'm going to use my armor die, which I rolled for 2 to block 2 of it, absorbing it, and we only have 1 damage coming through. All right, that could have been worse. And now we are done with Saber Shock's turn. So now Willowhair gets to go. All right, so Willowhair is going to go ahead and do some movement. We'll first use this one right here in order to move. So that's going to give me my allotment of 4. I'm going to go 1, 2, and stop right there. I kind of want to be in the way of that one. So this one goes here rather than going after Sparky if there's any kind of tie for distance. And this is good. I can attack on the diagonal. Here's what's awesome. I have lots of stars this time around. So I'm going to do a Vine Whip, which has a type associated to it of grass. Now, if we take a look at the chart here, if I'm using grass, basically I have an advantage against any RoboMon that's water. This one looks like a mountain range, I think. And then this one is shock. But the shock is the one that matters. So I get the green die on this attack, which is awesome. So I might as well, I have to pay 1 power to do this Vine Whip in the first place, so we'll do that. We also have to spend a die, so we'll do 1. I'll do 2 because I want to boost it to the highest level. So now we're going in with 3 damage plus this die on top of it and trying to really land as much as possible on this. Oh, actually, well, I guess I can't go any higher than 2 stars in this case. That'd be nice if I could, but I cannot. Let's go ahead and see how this lands. Come on, give me a really good one. Yes, that's awesome. So 6 damage, that's huge. Is that enough to kill it? It is. I just landed a kill because Saber Shock has 9 hit points. I already had 3 against it, 6 damage with no armor to defend. I just wiped it out. That was pretty awesome, and I'm quite happy we took down the stronger of the 2 RoboMon, but now Willowhair's turn is done, unless I wanted to do some last-minute movement, but I'm pretty happy just staying where I'm at, kind of guarding Sparky a little bit, and we're going to let the next one initiate up here in the top, so let's go ahead and roll to find out what is happening. We got ourselves a 4. Now this thing still has its 2 armor because we haven't hit it yet, plus it still has 6 hit points remaining afterwards. We're going to do 8 total damage to get through this thing. Okay, so we rolled a 4. That is going to have us, actually it's going to be focusing on a grass, so it's literally coming towards me anyway, but the downside of this is the attack is going to be a type-based one, which could give advantage or disadvantage. We'll have to check it out, but we first need to move this thing to be within range of 3. You'll see this whirlwind, it does a range of 3, so we're going to stop 3 spaces away with the AI, and then it's going to make its attack. So the flying RoboMon is making its way down just a little bit further to be within perfect range to do a whirlwind attack here on our grass RoboMon. This is not good. So we take a look at the type. What kind of an attack is this coming at us from that RoboMon? It's a wind-based one, which means it has advantage against grass-type RoboMon. So the green die is in play. That's not good for me. And then on top of that, this already comes at a 3 damage hit, plus whatever I roll on this. So we're going to likely have to try and use some defense here to absorb some stuff. Plus, the whirlwind ability, as it states, as all RoboMon adjacent to the target will take 2 hit points. So really unfortunate that we're kind of paired together like that. Again, you're going to want to read the abilities on the enemies because in this situation, it would have been smart for me with the movement I had to actually separate before I made that die roll. Things to learn and keep in mind in the future. Okay, so 3 is what we got as a base. Let's roll this and see what happens on top of it. Okay, so now it's up to 5. Now, how can we defend against this? Well, I'm going to use my token here for Willow Hair. I'm going to flip it to the opposite side, and I'm going to exhaust it to defend for 2. That's going to drop it from a total of 5 down to 3. So only 3 getting through on Willow Hair, but then 2 goes through on Sparky. But I'm going to have Sparky use Sparky's token as well to defend against that 2, so it does not get through. All right, I pulled back the camera so you can kind of see all the different tokens, their orientation, and where things are at currently, but that is going to end off that RoboMon's attack. Now, we're going to take a look at Sparky and see what Sparky can do. Now, not exactly the most aggressive individual ever, and we don't really have too many wilds in the fray. We don't have any at all. We have one ability to do a basic attack. I've already just spent this for defense, so now my bite would be pretty small. It'd be a 1 damage attack, and this enemy here still has an armor, so we need to break through that armor in order to get rid of it. So Sparky's damage currently would not be strong enough to break through it, so I'd rather just go ahead and focus maybe on something below, like repairing. So I could actually do a repair, so I could spend 2 power, so I'll drop this 4 down to a 2, and what we're going to do is we're going to spend 1 of these stars here to repair. I'm going to target, because I'm right beside my friend Willowhair here, and I'm going to actually give, or take away, I should say, 2 of the damage that Willowhair has to be removed and out of the equation, and that will help to heal things. So Sparky is very much a support RoboMon for sure. All right, we're ready to go into the next game round. The tokens have all been refreshed. Dice pool's ready to go. We're going to roll, and this time, the enemy RoboMon is not going to be going first because Saber Shock is down, so it's going to jump straight down to Willowhair to go first, which is great. Because Willowhair is my strongest one. Oh my gosh, that's a crazy roll. Okay, I mean, if you're looking for power, that is a lot. Okay, let's try to grab these and move them over here. So, in terms of what Willowhair is going to do here, I'm going to go nuts. I am going to throw everything at this thing to try and take it down. So first off, we're going to move. So we'll go ahead and use a die to move. Allotment of 4, we're going to go 1, 2, 3 to get right adjacent to it. Again, I can't go diagonal with that movement. Then we're going to go ahead, and this is where it gets interesting. Now, if I'm attacking a wind-based individual, do I have advantage or disadvantage? That is the question. It looks like it's disadvantage, so I don't want to be doing my Vine Whip. Vine Whip will not go over so well with this type of RoboMon, so we're going to focus on the Slice. So we're going to go ahead and spend this red one here. We're going to spend 2 power to do it. And we're going to boost this thing up to the next level. And I'm going to use this and tip it sideways to go for a full 3 combo up to 5, which is pretty good. And because it's a basic attack, I get my black die in there on top. I might get enough here, but I'm not going to be able to kill it. But I should be able to get a decent hit so long as I don't roll a negative here. And I spoke it right into existence. Okay, so I got 5, negative 2 is going to be 3 damage, but that's enough to at least rip through the shield up there, and 1 damage goes on. All right, we're working our way up there. Let's go ahead and roll for this one, see what it's doing. Got a 3 this time. Oh, it's still going to be a whirlwind attack. At least we're separated this time, so that's a plus. Now, it's still going to go, based on the 3 here, it's not going to go to a fire type. It's going to go to a grass type, so it's already right beside me. It's quite happy. The whirlwind can be hit from range 3. However, the RoboMon will stay put and make its attack from here. It's going to have advantage, which is really unfortunate for me, based on the table, it being a wind attack. We've seen this before, so the green die coming in. This is a nasty attack. 3 hit points already, plus whatever this die adds to it. This is coming to Willowhair, and it's going to be a +2. Oh my gosh, so that's 5. Now, what can I do to defend against this? Literally nothing. I have no dice that can help, and I've already used my token. It's already sideways. I used it for my attack. So I have 5 coming in at me for a total of 6 now. That escalated quite quickly, but we're still standing with Willowhair, although a little beaten up. But the good news is we need to make ourselves useful and do as many attacks to this thing and take it down the next upcoming round, or we're going to be in some trouble. So we really need to have Sparky likely just come up here and use an ability in order to boost Willowhair. So the repair, you need to be within 2 spaces. I'm currently not there right now, and here's what's terrible. I don't have the movement here to do it, but I do have the movement over here. So I'll go ahead and tap this thing like this to give me a 3 allotment, give me enough to just move up behind. I'll be within range in order to do the repair, which needs 2. and it's going to cost me 2 power to do this. So now you'll see my power here for Sparky's down to its bitter end. This is going to actually take away the 2 that I've got here from Willow Hair. So that's going to be removed, which is nice to kind of patch it up. And there we go. So that is going to be Sparky's turn. We're done. We're going into a new round, which means a new dice roll in terms of the action dice, and our tokens are coming back up. This is the big round. We want to win, so we need to get some good rolls here. I don't want to see a lot of movement, that's for sure. Let's go ahead and find, oh, that's good. That's a good mix of stuff. We got some good armor in there. We got some reds in there. Like that's going to work out nicely, I think. That's a good roll. Okay, so we're heading into things with Willow Hair already adjacent. We might as well just go with the Slice, which is the strongest, and it's already 1 damage, only needs 5 more, so really this would kill it. So if we can generate the 4, we've got it, which we definitely do. So we're just gonna go like this, take these 2, we're gonna take this, that's gonna give it the attack. Now here's the thing, this is a basic attack, so it does have the modifier die. That's the wild card. So that's the issue, I guess, with using this attack. Now, if I decided to use the Vine Whip, if I'm checking this again, yeah, see, I don't have an advantage using the Vine Whip against this individual, which is why I didn't choose to do that one. And Strafe is good for defensive. I didn't use Strafe, but my bottom ability allows me to subtract. I could have done this in defense. This is something that's worth mentioning. When I took that massive damage, I have a Strife ability on the card, and I can actually use it for 2 power, which I could have done. I decided to soak up the damage and subtract a D4's worth of the hit points that I got from an attack against Willow Hair. So that's something that I could use as a last-ditch effort to try to soak up real nasty hits coming against me, rather than taking it like I did. So let's go ahead and roll this and pray that the modifier die doesn't mess me over. So I've got 5 going into this. I might even need to have Sparky come running around and bite him if the modifier die gets me. Here we go. Yes, we got a +2. That is it. These RoboMon are down. We win the competitive battle. When a battle ends, all RoboMon on your team re-energize back to full power. However, any damage they sustain during the battle remains on them until you repair them. You take all the versus cards, put them back in the deck, take all the tokens, put them back in the token sheets, and after a competitive battle like this one, you look at the win-lose area at the very bottom of the battle mat. I got it highlighted here, and you're going to determine exactly what you get. In this case, we're getting 3 silver and 2 batteries, and then it's telling us to turn to 1703. After defeating Tabitha up here at point 17, she says, "Wow, I underestimated you, but don't worry, I won't make that mistake next time." At this point, we gain 1 small repair kit. Now, taking a look at my inventory now, I have 2 wire, 1 metal, a small repair kit, 3 reprogrammers, 12 batteries, and 13 silver, as well as my RM tracker. We come out of Copper Ridge and onto the old road, which has its own music as well as a description here. This should state page 01 as it goes back to Copper Ridge if we wish. It's just a typo that the designer's aware of. This says, "The old road still carries the scars and remnants of the Great Collapse and ensuing war. However, over the years as the environment was rebuilt, the area went from desolate to teeming with life and is now home to more creatures than you can shake a graphene tube at. Hikers, bird watchers, nature lovers from all over Alloy flock to the old road to enjoy the sights and sounds. There's also been an unusual number of damaged RoboMon wandering around lately as well, which should probably be investigated." Now, I don't know about you guys, but I want to try this RM tracker now that we're out in the wild. So we're going to go ahead and spend a battery, and it's going to be tossed away. That's going to drop me from 12 down to 11. We're going to roll 2d6 and see how close we can get to one of these RoboMon in here. So let's go ahead and roll it. Now, the one thing I am thinking of doing here is I've got myself a small repair kit, and Willow Hair currently has 4 damage on it. So I might want to repair this before I actually go ahead and use the RM tracker. I think it's a wise decision to go ahead and use my small repair kit that I just got because it states right here, use it to restore a RoboMon to full hit points when out of combat. We're out of combat right now, so boom, just like that. The Willow Hair is all ready to go, and you can also see a number of other items in the descriptions here as well. Now let's go ahead and use the RM tracker. Let's roll our dice and see how we do. We got ourselves a 3 and a 4. So taking a look, that's going to be versus 014. We don't have to spend any batteries at all. Now again, if we were off by a little bit and we didn't actually land like I just did on one of the versus cards, we found something right away, which is awesome. Then we just use a battery to uptick or downtick the dice in order to get there. So you just have to burn more power with your scanner. We have found a Burn Viper. This looks like an interesting RoboMon, and it comes in with 1 armor token, which I've given it, and it's going to be going second in order. And yes, it's a 2 versus 1 situation here. We have Willowhair and Sparky going up against the Burn Viper, and I'm going to see whether I can try and capture it. So we're going to start things off by rolling the dice, see what we get for our dice pool, and go from there. And I get to start it off with Willowhair, which is nice. And this thing has the 2 armor plus 6 to get through. We have a lot of movement there. So in wild battles, movement no longer matters. You can tell that movement mattered a lot when you're doing a competitive battle, but what does matter now is the hourglass symbol, but we don't have any of them on the dice. Basically, if those show up, you immediately put them on this RoboMon and could attempt to flee, which we don't want to have happen. I want to try and trap it. Now, here's another nasty thing about this particular RoboMon we found. I'm using a grass type. This is a fire type. Fire and grass don't mix well. I am at a disadvantage when this thing comes at me with a fire type attack, and I'm definitely not going to be doing so hot with the Vine Whip. If I choose to use that against the Burn Viper, I'll have a disadvantage as well. So I need to use Slice. That's going to be the one that's going to help me out. So I'm going to use these 2 right here in order to boost myself up. We're going to pay 2 power to do a Slice. And I'm going to go ahead and actually use this as well to bump it up to 5. We need to rip through this right here. Now, I get to roll my modifier die, and I can pray to get a +2 here, but we all know that might change. Let's see. Oh, I got it. I got it. That's awesome. Okay, so that rips through this damage and puts 5 on him, leaving him with just 1. The Burn Viper is going to go next. We're going to go ahead and roll a die to find out what it's doing. Let's see. The focus is a 2, so it's going to be going after the slowest. That is going to be Sparky in this case. Oh, and it's coming at Sparky with a Constrict. It's going to be a 3 hit. That is not good. Now there's a symbol right next to Constrict here, the red one there. That is a trap symbol. So right now we're going to go ahead and roll a 4-sided die. If the result is 1 or 2, the affected RoboMon receives a trap token and may not move on its next turn. On its turn, if it attacks, it rolls a disadvantage die no matter what type of attack it is. So we definitely do not want to see that result. So let's go ahead and roll and see how we do. We got a 1. That's not good. So the Burn Viper is doing its Constrict, and it's going to go ahead and roll modifier die. It gets a -2 on its 3, so it's only 1 that's coming through. Well, I'm kind of tempted to just go ahead like this and defend against it. Now this is where things get really fun, because Sparky is going to forego his turn in order for me to use one of my reprogrammers. I have a small reprogrammer which allows me to roll a d4. We are going to throw it into the tray and see whether we can either meet or exceed the remaining hit points of the Burn Viper. Now I've set myself up really good here, because on a 4-sided die, because I'm using this small reprogrammer, remember if you have higher levels of reprogram, you get a better die, which has better results on it, of course. My worst result could be a 1. So if I roll a 1, I need to make sure the die lands either on the red line or within the red line area. Even better, if I land on the yellow line or within the yellow area, I get a +1 to my roll, which would be overkill at this point, because this thing only has 1 hit point remaining anyway. We just need to match or exceed it. And of course, if I hit the green, well, that's just even better. So anything red line or inside of is a capture. So here we go. Hopefully I don't screw this up. Oh, it is on the red line with a 1. It counts. We captured it just barely. And just like that, our RoboMon team is beginning to take shape. I now have a grass RoboMon and a fire RoboMon, and I've gone ahead and placed the Versus card for the Burn Viper back in the Versus deck, and then went into the RoboMon deck and found the exact same card number, pulled it out, put it here. I've also made it one of the active RoboMon, so I have Willowhair as an active one with this token, and Burn Viper with this one. Sparky is now going to go as part of the team, because I can have up to 6 on my team. Of course, you can have tons in your journal, but you can only have up to 6 in your team in front of you, 2 active at a time for any given situation. So I got a nice pairing here. This is going to be interesting. Also, don't forget to take the journal card associated to the RoboMon you just captured. Now you'll notice that the small reprogrammers have dropped by 1. It went from 3 down to 2. You lose these only when you successfully capture something. So I did, dropped it down by 1, and we're ready to continue our journey. So by this point, you guys have seen a lot of what RoboMon has to offer at the very beginning, but there is so much more to the experience. We've just scratched the surface, as there's all kinds of different experiences to be had as you journey out in the world. And again, tons of RoboMon to go out and capture and collect and build your team with, and even evolve them as well. And you get the choice anytime. I can choose here, like for instance right now on page 13, page 6, I could choose to ignore every note out in here and just continue on my journey. The freedom to do what you want, whether you want to be a completionist and check everything out and do everything, or you want to skip to certain areas to get to places faster and, you know, do things in a maybe different kind of path. You have that freedom to do so. So for this point in the video, I'm going to go ahead and literally just jump to page 13 to give you an idea as to what that path looks like, and I'm going to keep page 6 a secret. So as you can see, this is a cove area. Very interesting. And you can see you even go into a cave if you wish. There's individuals out on the beach. There's people by the docks. There's different compass areas up here to explore. Like, as I mentioned, you're going to continue to move through this world, and there's going to be things all over the place to interact with and RoboMon to collect, and you're going to be able to scan down here. This one just off screen actually has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different available boxes to try and succeed at finding RoboMon. Like, you're going to find certain ones in certain locations and other ones in other locations. This is really going to be quite the adventure and should be a lot of fun. I'm enjoying this up to here, but this is where I'm going to have to stop the preview, and that's mainly because the more I go into it, the more I'm going to spoil, and we've already covered a good chunk of what the beginners are going to want to know in order to make an informed decision on this particular game, and also just get their feet wet in the experience of RoboMon. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this experience. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this one. I'm really impressed. I find the ability to get this one to the table easily, set up and tear down, save, all that kind of stuff is quick and easy. I think something else about the game that really caught my attention is just the character and vibe of the game itself. If you are a fan of Pokemon in the past, present, or future, this game is going to be so up your alley. Now, if you're not a fan, you might come at this in a completely different mindset. But there's still a lot here to explore, and there's a very cool element of not only going through the narrative experience, but also having those battles, the ability to collect. If you're somebody who kind of gets hooked on catching everything or collecting everything, that can become a major driver in a game like this, where you're trying to find every single one of these RoboMon out in the wild. So you can go at it from many different elements, whether it's you're on the collecting side, the story side, the puzzle side, the evolving of these RoboMon, and all the experiences you're going to have inside of this world. I'm really excited for the campaign to see what else is going to happen, because in the prototype they mentioned 60, but I believe that those stretch goals are going to push this out even further. So I'm really excited to see what they have up their sleeve around that. But thank you guys so much for watching. Really hope that this 2-video series really helped you make that decision on this one. And as always, keep on rolling solo.